Hello, everyone. Janction, in my opinion, will truly allow Jasmy to live up to that name of the Bitcoin of Japan. And more importantly, it's understanding that, yes, technically speaking, this has nothing to do with Bitcoin. But that title, the Bitcoin of Japan, that's a big name to live up to. With that also said, I have two examples that I want you guys to pay attention to that will be shown towards the end of this outline. Janction is a huge deal moving forward for Jasmy. Smash that like if you haven't done so already. There are chapters in the description for each and every one of you. You know the drill by now. And also, if you're new, I'd like to welcome you to the channel. Let's jump into the material. First thing I'm going to point out is basically this announcement that came from Janction. Some of you guys have seen it on other shows, but definitely worth pointing out because, as we see here, Janction Web is officially launched. And if anything, it was nice to see that because I myself was looking for it for a while and of course had to find out that it was being worked on. But what's important is understanding that it's a layer 2 and more importantly, AI and what can it do for Jasmy moving forward for the actual token. So take you to the next part of this. This was shared from Hara, and this is good because it's going to help you understand, again, the bigger picture because we are talking about, for example, the whole idea of their wallet. A lot of people want to see that super wallet. So Hara mentioned in this interpretation that businesses like Jasmy, running a super wallet or a wallet business, I should say, like he says, it's quite simple. We just need to get a cryptocurrency exchange to act as an intermediary in the exchange business. Japanese cryptocurrency exchanges have published APIs. It's possible to incorporate exchange transactions between yen and tokens into business operators' service applications. Now, when we get further into the outline, I'll give you that example. He goes on to also mention, Hara that is, even if you want to exchange yen-denominated stablecoins or points for Jasmy, this can be easily done by using the exchange as an intermediary. This allows earned points and stablecoins to be tokenized within the business applications and received in the account of the linked exchange. As you know from the FTX case, or as we all know, Japanese exchanges are the safest in the world in terms of asset protection. I would have to agree. Then look at this statement. Unfortunately, Hara has not seen any cases where an exchange account is embedded in a service application as a business company and an exchange work closely together to execute a service. As a Japanese company, he believes it's their responsibility to create an environment where people can trade safely and securely, so he, or they at Janction, will work to create an environment where people can easily interact with crypto assets as soon as possible and make our services available to them. This is one of the key highlights moving forward for this outline. As I take it to the next part, again, the whole thing of Janction, early disclosure of Janction, unlock a one-stop platform for AI services. Monetize your AI resources effortlessly within, or with, I should say, just a few clicks. And of course, the whole thing of AI services with the groundbreaking layer 2. To take it to this other part and blow it up for you guys, I want you to understand some key things here. So the middle part shows, for example, miners. All right. I want you guys to understand, if you're new to Jasmy, this whole concept, and that basically is that, Jasmy is not proof of work like Bitcoin, but you're going to see examples in regards to data mining, okay? There's other forms of this other than just proof of work, okay? On the left side, you see the whole thing of GPU Marketplace. And of course, moving forward into the outline, you're going to see the significance of why I'm bringing that to you today. So take you to, again, the next part. Here's the actual site, because some of you guys want to see this. If you go to janction.io/get started, or just go to janction.io, you'll see this part. And an area that grabbed my attention is where it says join the network. On step 1, environmental preparation, choose your operating system, install software such as Docker. Now, if you guys follow me over on Hedera's HBAR coverage, basically, in my last video, and I'll actually put this at the end of this one, even though it has nothing to do with Jasmy, but again, it's for your understanding. It's crucial to understand and get these concepts. So I mentioned the whole thing of Docker in my outline for Hedera HBAR. And like you see here, it's interesting to see this incorporated within Janction. But more importantly, like it says, develop faster, run anywhere. Number one most used developer tool. These things is what I like. I like to see examples of them already incorporating proven methods that people simply like. People want ease of access. They want something that's user friendly. Okay? Everybody does. It doesn't matter if we're talking about blockchain, DLT. It just doesn't matter what it is. You have to have ease of use. People got to like the product because it's simply user friendly. Now, I'm not going to get into the deep dive about necessarily Docker, but when you go further down, it says accelerate how you build, share, and run applications. Well, when we're talking about Jasmy moving forward and Janction and all this, it is those applications. It is those wallets that are connected and so on. So, again, I can respect this. I like this. You know, I've worked in IT part-time for probably about 24 years now. I can appreciate stuff like this. So, you know, kudos to Hara for posting this. But if you were to go back to Janction.io, it talks about solution. And it talks about the whole thing of a service mesh, Janction Layer 2. Each GPU resource pool creation deploys a controller contract on the Janction network. This contract handles service registration, discovery, vGPU scheduling and allocation, metadata storage and management, and license management. The entire service process and transaction settlements are recorded and verified on the blockchain, preventing monopolies and, of course, fraud. You know, if data is the new oil, which, let's face it, everybody, it is. We know that. Well, if that's the case, no pun intended, but this is a good analogy, they don't want to create a standard oil mechanism. If you know your history about that, you know that was a monumental thing in which, of course, Standard Oil broke out to other ones. But in reality, well, think about it. Don't want to see monopolies. And if anything, is this truly a layer 2 solution that will be put on a marketplace to not just monetize data, but can it flow securely? And again, harness that trust and keep that trust within its own people, Japan and everywhere else, as we see more of this adoption. As I pull up this next thing for you guys, this takes you over to some of the documents that, let's face it, unless you're a researcher, you're probably not going to read all this stuff, and that's okay. But if you go to docs.janction.io, it talks about this layer 2, and it talks about the synergy, you know, the synergy of it and how scalable. It's an AI service that's truly scalable. But it's their aim of what they look to do in regards to the marketplace and how they look to provide unlimited GPU capacity to users at lower cost by aggregating GPUs from, of course, multiple sources. I mean, say what you want. This is why I was pointing out some of the significance about why Hara looked really into PS3s in the past for clustering, okay? And I did mention the whole thing about proof of work a while back. It references some of the concepts of proof of work. How so? Well, optimization, like I said, proof of work and consistency issues, among others. There are two ways to allocate resources in, again, cluster, GPU pools. They have an intro about this. I don't want to get into too much of the weeds of it because, you know, a lot of you guys aren't techie, and that's okay. But this concept of the GPU marketplace is definitely worth pointing out. And if anything, it will catch your attention here soon because we want to understand supply and demand. We want to understand what really will drive that adoption moving forward, how we can scale this thing for it can really truly live to that name of Bitcoin in Japan. Janction Network has built an innovative GPU marketplace designed to facilitate transactions between GPU demanders and providers, where users can shop for the GPU resources, of course, they need. The platform is designed to provide users with a transparent, fair, and efficient resource sourcing environment. Users can not only choose the right GPU resources for their needs, but also compare the specifications and prices of resources from, of course, different providers. The marketplace is not only limited to GPU resources, but also includes other high-performance processor resources, I should say. And this last part, they consider almost all current GPU arithmetic rental services, or service providers, I should say, but they do not consider a reasonable price scheme for maximizing the interests of both parties in distributing computing scenarios. And of course, they have proof of contribution. But it led me to this thing that, again, caught my eye, and again, I want to bring it to you. It's this concept of pricing strategy based on a thing called PVCG. And it says to incentivize data providers to continue or contribute the best data sets to the training process, we need to pay sufficient rewards to data providers to cover their costs. The marginal monetary reward for contributing more data should be no less than the resulting marginal cost. I agree, that's more than fair. In addition, their goal is to maintain a balanced budget and basically optimize social welfare. At least 3 scenarios, or sources, I should say, of information is asymmetry are intertwined in this problem. Asymmetry, excuse me. Number 1, the data set owned by each data provider, and number 2, the cost of each data provider. Number 3, the valuation of trained distributed machine learning models by, of course, model users. Okay, this may seem Greek. Well, this is where it gets interesting. How many times have I cited IEEE? Well, it says here, in this update, by the way, that efficient course selecting incentive mechanism is for data sharing and a federated learning, or learning capacity, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And in this, which I think it was basically just posted earlier this month in October, it puts a lot of focus on this thing called federated learning. Now, I know this is getting a little bit technical, and again, I'm not going to make this 2 hours, but if you weren't aware of it, federated learning is a distributed machine learning system that uses participants' data to train an improved global model. In federated learning, participants collaboratively train a global model, and after the training is completed, each participant receives that global model, again, with an incentive. This, of course, matches up with what you saw on the Janction site. But rational participants try to maximize their individual utility, and they will not input their high-quality data truthfully unless they are provided with satisfactory payments based on their contributions. I know I'm reading this a lot verbatim, but this is good stuff. Look at this. Furthermore, federated learning benefits from the cooperation of participants. Accordingly, how to establish an incentive mechanism that both incentivizes inputting data truthfully and promotes cooperative contributions has become an important issue to consider. In this article, they introduce, as in obviously IEEE, a data sharing game model for federated learning and employ game theoretic approaches to design a course selective incentive mechanism by utilizing a popular concept in cooperative games, the core, etc. But in federated learning, the core can be empty, resulting in the course selecting mechanism becoming infeasible. To address the issue, again, back to what Hara was talking about, our course selecting mechanism employs a relaxation method and simultaneously minimizes the benefits of inputting false data for all participants. Meanwhile, to reduce the computational complexity of the course selecting mechanism, they propose an efficient course selecting mechanism based on sampling approximation that only aggregates models on sample coalitions to approximate the exact result. Extensive experiments demonstrate that the efficient course selecting mechanism can incentivize truthful input of high quality data, and we're going to put some emphasis on that moving forward. So high quality data and promote cooperation effectively, while it reduces computational overhead compared to the course selecting mechanism. Again, what does it say? October 2024. And again, IEEE. Now we understand, and I always mention this guy, that Tadashi Morita from Jasmy has a level of expertise in this particular field. So that's definitely worth pointing out. And more importantly, the timeline of what you see in regards to the Janction website finally being done, this coming out, and again, Tadashi Morita's connections, of course, him being an expert in all this stuff. How many patents do we see cited in regards to IEEE? As I pull a little bit more of this up for you, I'm going to take you to this site. And by this way, I couldn't find anything on this site. Like it wouldn't come up anymore. I don't know why it was deleted. But whatever the case, from July 2024 to present, it's like, this doesn't exist anymore. So I had to go to the Wayback Time Machine. Look what it says in regards to some of this here. It says many existing studies in federated learning. This is on page 1 of 12 from rxiv.org. That's the citation. It says many existing studies in federated learning and machine learning focus on design incentive mechanisms to provide economic incentives for participants. The VCG mechanism is famous in game theory and mechanism design theory because it satisfies the properties of incentive, compatibility, and individual rationality. Due to its desirable properties, the VCG mechanism motivates participants to report their private information truthfully. All right, look at this. VCG-based incentive mechanism has been widely used in machine learning and federated learning. To reduce computational complexity, a faithful federated learning mechanism was proposed to compute the VCG-like payment via an incremental computation. It effectively reduces computational complexity, making it suitable for large-scale training scenarios. The utility of participants under VCG-based mechanism is equal to their marginal contribution, which motivates them to input high quality data. In addition to computing the VCG payment, allocating payments or profits based on cooperative contributions to promote stable cooperation is also a challenge in the federated learning. All right, I read a lot of Greek to you. I get that. But this, in my opinion, pounds home what Hara was mentioning in his tweet that, let's just face it, a lot of that goes right over people's heads. That's why I was pointing out to you. That in itself will set apart Jasmy from the competitors. Anytime you can create something that's unique that hasn't been solved yet, that separates yourself. And as we know, when projects separate themselves, that kicks in supply and demand, right? Because you have something that is unique. As I take you to the next part, give you another example because we talked about the whole thing about clustering. Okay, so this is from a site called mdpi.com, and it mentions here specifically that in the future, okay, because Hara was referencing the future, the trade-off between blockchain costs and the index of privacy preservation may be a hot topic of research. Certainly, a partial amount of data can be shared, and this will affect positively the output of machine learning-based applications. Another improvement can focus on the clustering of FL clients who can share the data before the final aggregation with others. And was an example of that. Well, in this illustration that I have for you guys, I want you to see this. I think this is good. You see the participants, participant 1, 2, and 3. You see the payment allocation. But again, look where it says about the whole thing of federated aggregation. Those are clusters. And if anything, the model accuracy. So when they talk about being truthful, that model accuracy kicks on over to, for example, the server. Yeah, if anything, this is big because moving forward, Janction basically is going to allow this model to have the proper throughput. Throughput will equal what, everybody? As I have always said in the past, utility in motion. Here's another example of how that flows. And you see the clusters. You could basically say, are those like PS3s? Well, that's just one example. But you can understand and appreciate the emphasis that Hara was mentioning long before he went out all over to the rest of the world. And as we also see, that with federated learning, which is FL, like it says, a machine learning method that allows multiple devices to train models collaboratively without sharing raw data. Blockchain tech, as we know, is decentralized, secure, and transparent framework for data storage and transactions. But if you combine this, everybody, FL and blockchain can create a powerful ecosystem that addresses limitations of traditional centralized AI systems. Again, scaling all of this. So this is really good to point this out. And of course, here's another thing, because some people want some examples of some bigger players. Some people might not even get anything I'm showing to you. What is an example of a big player that's basically worked on this and are still working on this? Well, here you go. Here's your boom, your first boy that mashed the stick in the studio moment. Because if you go to jpmorgan.com/technology, they get into the weeds of FedSyn. Federated Learning meets block. Last year, most of us probably weren't aware of this. JP Morgan's Onyx team won Swiss Innovation Hackathon with the objective to generate synthetic data while preserving data privacy. But more importantly, it was the continuation of that. Again, back to what Hara was mentioning, the continuation of that. The winning team has now published a paper on FedSyn framework that details application of 3 advanced techniques for generating synthetic data sets. Number 1, generative adversarial network, which was GAN. Then also federated learning, which was what we just talked about, and differential privacy. Interesting to see this, and more importantly, interesting to see JP Morgan integrate these concepts that Jasmy is basically working on with Janction. Apparently, Hara understands a lot more than most people realize, and kudos to him for getting it. As I take you to the next part, some people will ask, basically speaking, is JP Morgan really even in Japan? And the answer is yes. In Japan, JP Morgan provides financial services through JP Morgan Securities Japan, JP Morgan Chase North America, but Tokyo branch, so on and so forth, right? Yes, absolutely they're in Japan. And more importantly, let's take you to this example. Because back in September, from Ledger Insights, what do you see? You see that, basically speaking, Japan's big 3 banks are to use stablecoins and SWIFT for cross-border payments. And what's interesting is you see Progmat listed here, and you also see DataChain, and you see MUFG and SMBC and Mizuho. We've already done all these deep dives, right? But where it gets interesting is when you go over here and you see research from the great Neo X Tricks. He points out that Progmat project in Japan and stablecoins launch planned for this summer. That already happened, by the way. Okay? Because some people will ask, well, did it? Did it really truly happen? Yeah, it basically happened. How do we know that? Well, if you go to jpyc.jp, it mentions plain as day, let's buy JPYC if you want to purchase prepaid stablecoins and so on. I'll get more into that in a bit. So that did come to fruition. Back to what Neo's mentioning, and that is, they launched this thing. So Progmat is just like what Jasmy and Aplex are trying to solve. Okay? In Japan, a collaboration between Mitsubishi UFJ Trust and Banking Corporation MUFG, Progmat Inc., and JPYC aim to accelerate the digital transition to Web3 by launching a study on issuing a new stablecoin. And again, emphasis on what? Trust type. All right, look at this towards the bottom. Additionally, JPYC plans to issue stablecoins summer 2024. They already did that. And again, in compliance. Well, what are some examples? Well, basically speaking, that when you understand this a little bit more, one of the examples a while back is that December 3rd of 2023, about 10 months ago, Hara referenced this, and he says that we'll launch a full-scale stablecoin business as a third-party prepaid payment method utilizing the blockchain with Aplex. By utilizing blockchain, it will be possible to dramatically reduce costs while ensuring security and to aim for new market effects through the use of data. So how does this all play into the whole factor of Janction? Well, we'll get into that here in a bit, but what I want to show you is basically how it all came together. Because when you see here that JPYC Inc. developed and operated the JPY denominated SC brand JPYC, and basically how they're trying to look to incorporate some other things, well, you see the examples coming to fruition because you understand some of these key things. And I'll try to blow this up a little bit more. I know it's a little bit blurry, but look what it says. Self-custodial wallets play a factor. And more importantly, understanding permissionless blockchains play a factor through, for example, the Progmat coin system. All right, take Progmat out of the equation, right? Progmat is an example. Now inject what Jasmy is doing. Now inject JPYC with the whole concept of, for example, not just JPYC with Jasmy, but for example, Jasmy with Aplex in their particular future stablecoin. Yes, this is why we put so much emphasis on this stuff. And more importantly, well, what about the whole thing of, issuance? What about the whole thing of Japan? Well, as you see in the diagram, it mentions prepaid payment instruments, like I mentioned earlier. It mentions the whole thing of stablecoins. But with stablecoins, there is no restrictions. And it says, for example, as far as transferability, there's no restrictions. Redeemability says it's possible with the equivalent value of fiat. And of course, stablecoins, value fixed and equivalent fiat. But with crypto assets, it says, of course, there's fluctuation. Yeah, it's crypto assets. But what about redeemability? It says it's possible. And here is your focus: trade at market price. And the third part, transferability, no restrictions. And as you see here, JPYC, they issue that on their, platform, and it's linked to the Japanese yen, obviously, but it can be purchased and used to purchase NFTs or to exchange crypto assets for goods in the real world. This is one of the first examples that we've seen in a long time in regards to Japan standing out in this area. As I get more into it, it shares or shows you in this illustration about the JPYC app and how it's here. And as I take you to the next part, if you were to click on the app, what do you see on the top right? Connect your wallet. And what do you see? MetaMask, Rainbow, Wallet Connect, Ledger. All right, what happens when we finally get the super wallet done for Jasmy? And I know that's been a lot of emphasis for maybe a couple years now, but we will get there, It's just like we're going to get there in regards to the secure PC and some of these other products, okay? Well, look what it mentions. How to receive JPYC. Fill out the form, bank transfer, receive JPYC, enter your purchase information. More importantly, here's some other examples. The networks. And of course, the A-Star community are going to be like, yeah, A-Star all the way, I get it. I think A-Star is a good project, but we understand that Jasmy is under Ethereum. It's an ERC20 token. You would basically connect that. But you do need to have a layer 2 solution that's going to create that scalability. Everybody's flooding Jasmy in the past because of the ERC20 token, not realizing, haven't done the research of understanding the importance of that layer 2 solution. So there's that. And I think that's all worth pointing out. And it kind of give you an idea of how this all flows, how it all comes together. This is a big deal for Jasmy, of course, moving forward. Now, something else I want to point out. Basically, it's like this. Some people need to realize how Jasmy and Janction layer 2 solution, like how can it, where can it really go from here? Well, for one, obviously it's that scalability, but that scalability will allow Jasmy to handle a significantly higher volume of transactions. And of course, that also involves reduced transaction costs. But for me personally, two things stood out moving forward. And that is the concept of a data marketplace. And that, of course, is mentioned on the Janction site. Because Janction scalability can support a growing data marketplace where users can buy and, of course, sell their data. And that, of course, means IoT applications. The two, go together, as I always say, like peas and carrots. Forrest Gump and Jenny, right? But Jasmy's platform can be used to connect to, obviously, many IoT devices and securely share data. Janction's layer 2 in itself can handle the increased volume and transactions generated, of course, by these devices. But some people want examples, for example, of, platforms that basically are the most widely used marketplaces. And I want to show you some examples, basically. Here's the top 50. I'm not going to get into all of them, but this is definitely worth pointing out to you. First one you're going to see on the list is basically from a site called Monda.ai. And what's important here is understanding that they just published this on September 27. But the global data marketplace market size was valued at $968 million in 2022. And the market predicted to expand a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, 25% from 2023 to 2030. If you understand compound annual growth rate, you understand the significance of that. And basically speaking, while we understand the advantages of the data marketplace model, well, it's common knowledge, but the whole idea of requiring low tech and integration effort, they generate high, and you read that right, return on investment for data vendors. You know, a lot of times people just want to see me mention something about Jasmy to $17 or something like that. But not understanding there is some great examples of how we get to even just certain sectors that will allow that volume to happen. So as more data marketplaces appear, it can be challenging for data buyers to provide and keep track of the platforms out there. But their data marketplace directory includes every company currently operating a data marketplace. So what is a data marketplace? Well, we kind of know about that for the most part, but these platforms for organizations and individuals can buy and sell data. Well, say what you want. In Japan, they want to protect all that data. They want people to have the choice. You know, some people say, well, with our phones, we have a choice, but people kind of blindlessly don't understand that. Hence why you have Google, and why that's the biggest centralized data marketplace probably in the world. But here is the top one based off of rankings and why they matter. Data Marketplace. You know, some people that watch my Jasmy content drink a lot of Haterade, but Data Marketplace is the world's largest external data marketplace. It lists 2,000 plus data provider companies with products and data as a service covering 600 plus categories. Buyers use the platform to search for data, filter according to their requirements, compare samples, instantly connect with vendors directly. And again, when you get further into this, other than just Data there's SAP, which is a big name. There's IBM, which is a huge name. And again, I want people to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, when we see examples, even from DataRay.ai, that even on a basic level, data marketplaces work just like any other online market or e-commerce platform. Except, though, everybody who's still listening, on data marketplaces, instead of the product being a coat or a subscription to a movie streaming service, the product the buyer is buying on data marketplaces, obviously it's just that. It's data. And this is why people point out that data is the new oil. Otherwise, most data marketplaces basically deliberately replicate the same shopping experience with which I should say you'd encounter on a retail website or movie streaming platform. They facilitate what's known as data commerce, which follows broadly, and look at this, the same process as e-commerce or retail commerce or even bank-to-bank commerce. Another example of understanding this is, aside from IoT, the increase in web scraping technology has also contributed to the big data revolution. Now that part is something that I want to bring you guys, because it says that IoT and web scraping are part of what caused over 2.5 quintillion bytes of data to be created globally every day in 2017. This is only going to increase, and listen to this, everybody, with the total volume of data created worldwide to be expected to reach 149 zettabytes, basically speaking, by 2045. Everybody wants me to just talk about 2025 and 2026. Some people don't want to wait to 2030, right? But a zettabyte is a unit of measurement for digital storage capacity that is used to describe the capacity of a computer or, basically another device. But what is a zettabyte? Well, 1 zettabyte equals to 1,000 exabytes, 1 billion terabytes. My God. Or 1 trillion gigabytes. It is also equal to 2 of the 70th power of bytes. That's a lot of data. Okay? That's a tremendous lot of data. Well, what is data mining? All right? Back to IBM. Data mining is the use of machine learning and statistical analysis to uncover patterns and other valuable information from large data sets. Okay? And here's where it gets good, in my opinion, because people are going to ask this all day long, and I can't blame you. And maybe this is the only area that you're really interested in, and that's okay too. But from what I gathered, data mining projects during the last 2021 bull run cycle, well, while that cycle was primarily driven by the surge of, for example, BTC and Ethereum, but there were several projects that focused on data mining. Hear me out, please. Everything went right over your head. This is the good part, okay? So there was really good altcoins that did really well during that time that focused on data mining and analytics, and they also truly saw significant growth. Two notable examples, and I want to give this brother a shout out, okay? Jesse, KIR Finance, because he's done some deep dives about this. So number one is Ocean Protocol. The other one, obviously, I'm going to get into is SingularityNet, and I've covered that since it was about 4 cents back in the day when I first started this crypto journey of doing live shows and recorded videos and so on. But let's talk about Ocean Protocol for a moment. Their focus is on basically being a decentralized marketplace. They have key features: tokenization of data, data privacy, data monetization. Does this all sound familiar to you? It does. The performance. Ocean Protocol experienced a significant surge in price and user adoption, of course, during the last bull run, as demand for decentralized data solutions increased. I hold a lot of Filecoin, that as well, but that's a different example. In regards to SingularityNet, listen to this, their focus is being a decentralized AI platform. Janction hits 2 birds with 1 stone with this. Some of their key features: AI development, AI marketplace, and data sharing. Performance-wise, SingularityNet's focus on AI and data-driven solutions aligned with the broader trend towards artificial intelligence and, of course, machine learning. Now we understand, and I'll show you some screenshots here, that, of course, like Jesse mentioned, they merged. And I'll take you over to this old example because this is, of course, before the mergers. Where I want you to pay attention to some of this is that, for example, Ocean Protocol, before it did this merger to become with Fetch and SingularityNet as, basically speaking, the Superintelligence Alliance, aka the ASI token. Well, look at this. Back in 2019, this was hovering around 1.5 cents. Think about where Jasmy is at right now. Jasmy is hovering around what? For a while, it was doing 1.5 cents, and it was doing 2 cents. Then it took off. Took off, of course, at the beginning of this year. But this went on a big bull run, $1.94. Okay? Now, in my opinion, Jasmy has so much more utility than Ocean Protocol, but Ocean is a solid project. And I'm glad to see this integration. A lot of you guys already, are looking forward to this super intelligence alliance, right? But again, if you look at that, at roughly about 1 cent, give or take, right? And that climb to 194, well, that's pretty easy to jump into the next part, because we mentioned SingularityNet, AJAX. Well, basically speaking, do we have any examples about that as well? We do. You see that with SingularityNet, that climb, and I remember this climb, all right? And then we saw it just kind of keep climbing. So September of 2021, right around from a penny to about 63 cents. Earlier this year, right around spring, we saw it go up to $1.29, okay? So that would be what? 129x. So interesting to see that. Glad to share this with you guys. And if anything, simply do me a favor if you listen to the entire outline and type this into the comments. And that is data AI. And I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. Thanks again for listening to this entire outline. Know what you hold. Know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. We'll see you on the next one.
If managing your crypto
feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.